Welcome to Get Better Basketball Live. I'm Coach DeMarco, and today my guest is Coach Ben Murphy, who's going to break down the 1-2-2 half-court trap for everyone out there. You're not going to want to miss this episode. But before I jump into it, make sure you hit that like button down below, turn on your notifications, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great video breakdowns each and every week. Another Get Better Basketball Live is up now. Welcome to Get Better Basketball Live. Coach DeMarco here, and I have joining me once again, Coach Ben Murphy. Coach, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good outside of it being raining for the last 2 or 3 days. Other than that, we're all good.
It's been a rough couple days in the Northeast, but I'm excited today because you're going to talk a little bit about the 1-2-2 half-court trap. And I just want to start by asking you, why the 1-2-2 half-court trap? Why do you like it with your team?
I think that going man-to-man against a lot of squads was going to be in our best interest. So then we looked at different types of zones, and we decided on the 1-2-2. We thought it was pretty versatile. You can play it very aggressively. You can play it very conservatively. It can be very disruptive, or you can kind of just, you can squeeze your guys in and play pretty conservative if you need to. We had a smaller, height-wise group that year when we first started doing it, and I thought that worked well for a team that was small and quick. And then also I think it thought well with kind of smaller schools with shorter benches. You're still causing a lot of disruption without going down your bench to maybe some kids that you don't have a lot of trust or a lot of faith in yet. So that's kind of some of the reasons why we chose it. And the other thing is it's a little bit different. You don't see a lot of teams that run it. At least we didn't in our league. So that was one reason why we did it. A lot of people weren't doing that. We were seeing a lot of 2-3 and a lot of man-to-man. So we wanted to be kind of a curveball off of what people would normally see. And one thing was a lot of teams, we just don't see a lot of ball screen action against it. So that was good too. Kind of prevented us from getting into rotations and matchups that we kind of wanted to avoid. Again, because the year we put it in and the two couple years we ran it as our main defense, we were small and we kind of wanted to avoid it getting pounded inside a little bit as much as we could. So anyway, we did it. It seemed to work out.
Coach, you guys, you guys would obviously there's different ways to run it, and you guys like to trap out of it.
Yeah. So when we first taught it, when we first installed it in the summertime, we basically said, this is the only thing we're going to run for the summer. We're just going to try to get really good at this one thing. And then my goal was, okay, I'm going to teach how to trap out of just the baseline corners. And I kept on saying all summer, okay, we'll extend it out and we'll trap the top corners and we'll get to that point. We'll get to that point. We'll get to that point. And then they just got pretty good at trapping corners, and we were causing a lot of problems that way. And we were turning teams over pretty well. And they were just getting good at it. So I just didn't think that there was much of a need to change. We did eventually, teach them how to extend that out. But I think we probably maybe only ran that a handful of times. So our base defense, we just trapped the lower corners, and that was really disruptive. That forced teams to kind of figure out how they're going to use and space the court a little bit differently. So that's how we started it up. It wasn't the original plan to stay that way. We wanted to get up and get a little bit more aggressive, but we were turning teams over all summer long with just trapping the corners, and it worked. So
in terms of the 1-2-2, if you could just take us through kind of the basic alignment and what worked well for your team.
Sure. So our 1-2-2, a reason why I liked it. So we started out pretty compact. We didn't extend it out too much to start. And so we kind of just put guys on the elbows and baseline like that. So pretty simple setup, right? This guy, we might extend him out a little bit because his goal was to kind of funnel folks to a side. So I just wanted to go through kind of how we chose to put guys in these, who we chose to put in these various positions. We wanted this guy to be our best finisher on the offensive end, because he's the guy that was going to end up with a lot of the tips, a lot of the steals coming out of the corner traps, and a lot of contested finishes on the other end. So we actually ran through several guys who were, pretty good defensively. But you really need someone who can finish at a high speed, because they're going to get a lot of layups, but they're going to be chased down layups with somebody coming behind them. So you can't have a kid that's too timid doing that. So anyway, we tried to get a person that was a pretty solid finisher in that role, and they ended up profiting with a lot of layups if we were setting our traps fairly well. So that's a 1, but really it's not necessarily the point guard. We actually would put our point in this position here, and for a couple of reasons we put them there. One is most of your traps are going to come off of this side, off of your right-hand side. And so we kind of wanted to save his legs a little bit. And so we would kind of keep him out of that first initial trap and kind of keep him from going crazy defensively. And on a made shot, it actually put him in a decent position where ball comes out here. He's in a pretty good position to catch and then run it up the sideline here on his strong hand. So we were always thinking about how do we convert that into, efficient offense once we get the ball back, whether it was on the right-hand side, we would put two of our best defenders because we figured most offenses are going to run their stuff going up the right-hand side for the most part. And we would put our guys there because they're going to usually get the first opportunity. Player, even though he's starting on a block, he's really not going to cover the block all that much. He's just going to initiate there and kind of move out to cover the corners. And then kind of our biggest, slowest defender we would put on this weak side block because really all he's got to be able to do is go, if we set this first trap correctly, all he's going to be able to do is move across the lane and deny the post. And that's a pretty easy rotation, even for somebody who doesn't have a ton of quickness. So we put kind of our biggest guy there. And his first job is to protect the post anyway. So, putting your big guy there as the first post protector made a lot of sense to us too. But we were undersized. So I say, our best post defender was like 6'2". So it's all relative there. But anyway, that's the basics of how we would set up and kind of how we chose, those guys. We didn't start like that. We kind of just put guys in our, that kind of evolved, and we kind of we didn't think about that kind of through as much for us. That was a lot of trial and error to kind of get to that point, because we realized like if we got pretty good at setting this trap here, then we didn't have to worry about too much of the other stuff. If we were doing a good job of getting that first one, we turned people over a lot of times on that first pass to the corner. So that's how we got that one done.
I like how intentional you are and detail oriented you are about what player is in what spot. And I really appreciate the thought process that goes, into that. And then, the next piece looks like the corner trap is kind of the first thing you're trying to force. You're looking for that pass into the corner. So can you talk to us a little bit about, that decision and that trap in the corner?
Sure. So when we first installed it, our goal was always like, we're going to trap all the corners and we're going to be flying around the half court. But I said, we kind of wanted to take baby steps when we installed it. So we're like, all right, let's learn how to trap corner first. And we'll kind of go from there. And we just got pretty good at it over the course of a summer. And so that's what we stuck with. We did end up learning how to trap up the top corners if we needed to, but we only used that a handful of times because the guys got used to just the rotations of trapping the corner and they got to be pretty disruptive. And we just didn't think it was worth the risk to really extend and trap up top if we didn't need to. So the basics of it, we want the ball funneled kind of on up an alley, right? We don't want it coming down the middle. So that's the goal of this man up top. And you might actually see him be kind of parallel to a sideline. Once they get the ball over half, he's kind of parallel to the sideline. His goal is to kind of keep it on this half. We really don't want teams swinging the ball back and forth. That kind of murders the zone a little bit because then it creates some shifts that you don't really want. The ideal that we would love to see is, and I don't know why teams would do this, but is nobody in the high post and a guy in the corner here. So, if they had a shooter in this corner, that's lovely. We wanted that. And our goal was we wanted to make that pass look as inviting as possible. Because what kids are used to, we say pressure, our guys would, when they first started learning the defense, they were standing right near that guy in the corner and the pass would never get thrown. And when I said, we got to think like, we got to stand here, make that pass look super inviting, especially to a decent shooter. And then we know we're kind of one step ahead of things. So if the ball does go to that corner, our 4 is flying out for a trap. Our 2 is dropping down to trap. Our point man here is dropping to the elbow. Our 5 man's coming over and protecting the high post. And our point guard's sinking middle and kind of zoning up anybody that's on the back side of the zone here. If there's any lobs out of there, they can get a tip steal and kind of go. One of the things I like about the 1-2-2 is I think the rotations are simple and they're short for the most part. You don't have guys having to cover like, baseline to baseline, like you might in the 1-3-1 or, any other sort of trapping defense. So the rotations are to me are shorter and simpler. The longest you're going to go is like block to corner. And that's on like a really quick ball reversal, which is, you should be trying to prevent anyway. But anyway, so let's say the ball's here and we got our trap going. in this corner. We wanted our one to drop to this elbow and take away the high post at all costs. Right? We really were kind of dead if that ball hits the high post, like most zones are. So we would drop him there, and his first goal wasn't to get a tip steal; it was to just prevent that pass from happening. But what a lot of teams would do is, if someone threw a pass, they would eventually kind of stand right there, and we would leave that guy looking wide open. The goal was, we always told this guy to be physically here, but mentally here, right? And just all he's doing is watching his eyeballs. And a lot of times that's got to be a two-hand. If you're setting a decent trap, that's got to be a two-hand overhead pass, and you can see that coming and just jump it and go. And that's the steal that we would get often, is just that tip steal, and that guy would be 1-on-0 or 1-on-1 with this guy chasing him from behind. That's the steal we were looking for often, that we got kind of most often. It was very disruptive, in my opinion.
So, Coach, you forced that first trap into the corner, and I like the rotations and everything. Sometimes in the 1-2-2. So I like this. It's unique in that sometimes in the 1-2-2, you have that player they extend out to half court, and the player comes over half court, and they try to trap. Opponent goes middle, opposite corner, or middle, high, low, and they kind of attack it from that area. You're baiting them to throw it into the corner, and then you're flying out there and you're trapping that first guy. As teams played out of that trap, I'm guessing sometimes they might have thrown that pass back out to the wing, or maybe a player dribble penetrated. Can you just take us through one or two things, like where you might rotate, and then would you guys try to trap the other corner? And
absolutely, yeah. So we're trapping both low corners. We want to avoid that quick swing to the corner, but yeah, if that happens, basically, if we've got a 4 and a 2 right here setting a trap, we got our guy covering corner, we got our guy covering this post, and we got our opposite side elbow would drop to the wing. So that's kind of our positioning. If the ball were to get swung over to this corner, or that happens fairly slowly, because it's going to be 3 would have to kind of close down, 5 sprinting across, 4 sprinting across. You can see the problems that it creates. It's a long close if we get 2 quick passes. That's a tough one. It's an easy one for the one. He's just got to get across and cover the opposite elbow. But it's a tough haul. If you get a quick like swing over the top, that's killer. So our goal is never to allow 2 quick passes in a row. Like we didn't really want to allow 2 passes at all in a row, but we didn't want 2 quick ones at all, because that's really deadly to any zone, but really to this one, because if you can go corner, top corner, there's really not much we could do to recover. And so we really wanted to force, even if we didn't get a deflection, force them to throw lobs. And that's really the job of setting the trap, was like, hey, if we don't get a deflection, at least make them throw a looped pass so your teammates can recover and kind of do the same thing on the opposite corner.
And would you guys ever look to extend out and trap out further, or was it pretty much you were looking for those 2 corners, or did you trap in other areas as well?
We would extend out a little bit, but not past half court, again, because we were small and we had a short bench, so we really wanted to be aggressive, but with purpose, right? So on the upper corners, what we found was, like, most teams have a habit of they either have a guy they trust to handle the ball, and he's going to dribble it across half court most of the time, or they're going to advance it with a pass. It's weird. Like when you first start watching it, you probably don't notice it unless you're playing a zone that's predicated on that, is that most teams have a habit of doing one thing or the other. They're going to pass it across or dribble it across. They have a thing that they prefer to do. So we were either, if they're dribbling it across, our goal is to trap the dribbler. If they were passing it across, our goal is to trap, first pass. And so again, if they're coming up the right-hand side, like most offenses probably want to do, the rotations are still pretty simple. We want to make that pass or that area look open. So our zone is kind of skinny looking. We want to make the edges of the court look like a great place to go, and then take those things away. So if their point guard was dribbling to here, as soon as he crossed, we're kind of creeping over and we're trying to set a trap this way. Right. And then it just becomes taking away the two closest passes. So 5 is usually kind of scooting up the sideline a little bit here, because there's probably somebody in this general area on an advanced pass. 3 is stepping more to the middle, and there's, kind of covering anybody that flares through here. And then 4 is kind of stepping up on a diagonal as well. right? He's the last line of defense. He should be the lowest guy on the defense, right? The weak side block. So his goal is just obviously not let anybody behind him. But typically, if he stayed anywhere in this general area, he's getting some sort of deflection, or if they're trying to throw a loop over the top or throw for a layup, he's got a good opportunity to get tips and steals there. But we didn't end up extending this to this one too often. I know a lot of teams, this is like their base. We kind of did it opposite of that just because of the limitations of our roster and stuff. We just didn't feel like we could be flying around to half court for the whole game and really survive. So we played a little bit more conservative, but I say conservative, but we ended up, our first 6 or 7 games before B teams had scouted us, we were causing, 16 to 20 turnovers a game. Even in games we weren't winning, we were still pretty disruptive, and the kids liked playing it. Like that's the kind of what, a nice part of it too, is that the kids kind of saw how effective it could be even when you're playing against teams that were bigger and faster than you. It was a nice equalizer for us, I thought, in a lot of cases. So that would be your basic rotation there. And then the same thing would happen is if you want to prevent those quick swings, because the rotations just get long and you get extended, as inviting as possible. And then it's kind of like Venus flytrap, right? You want to make it look good and then snap down on them when they come through there. You take away the easy ones and force them to throw some lobs and some weak passes out of those traps, ideally.
Like the 1-2-2, coach, obviously you can play it different ways. You mentioned 3/4 court, you can get the half court trap, or even bring it back a little bit. And I like about what you did with yours was that you were conservative in that you were letting them bring the ball up half court and get a little bit comfortable. But teams love to throw the ball into the corner, and then you're getting aggressive, anticipating that that pass into the corner. And obviously they could swing it across, and then typically it's like corner or across, and then they go to the corner, especially if it's tight and they can't go middle. So you're going to get a corner trap on one side or the other. And I think that's a really nice thing about the way you play it. And the other thing I was thinking about is in transition, as you're sprinting back to get into this defense, teams often take 1 or 2 dribbles and they zip the ball up to the corner. And I can envision as that happens, your players are sprinting back and they're just sprinting into a trap. So you're also baiting them in transition too. So there's some nice benefits to the way you do it.
Yeah, and I think like you think about the alignment that you're sprinting back into, it's kind of like the idea that you want to have in transition anyway. You want to have somebody at the top of it's kind of the shape of a house, right? You got to have a guy at the top and you got to have guys guarding the box. And if it actually helped in transition defense too. So whether we got the trap set or not, we felt like if guys are just sprinting back to their spots, there was no confusion about where you had to be. And we wanted to jump that corner pass as soon as possible, whether it took them 5 seconds to get there or 15. We were going to jump that first one to the corner.
So coach, if coaches are watching this, and I like that you showed them sort of basic rotation, and obviously they can adjust it out a little bit, they can bring it back a little bit, and those rotations don't change. The ball goes to the corner, you trap. If it comes back out, you get back in your spots. It goes to the other corner, you trap. And those little rotations you showed are pretty consistent throughout the defense. It keeps it simple for the kids. But if coaches are looking at this, what advice, you guys you ran it successfully. It worked for your team. It's unique. A lot of teams, as you said, like to trap up at half court. I love that you guys are trapping down in the corner to get this started for all the reasons we've talked about. So what advice do you have for coaches?
So I would say start conservatively and see what you can get out of that. I was amazed because when I first wanted to do it, my original thought was we're going to want to make it look a little bit more like that Villanova where there's a lot of tips and steals in and around half court. But my thought was let's build it from the baseline out. And my thought was always, we're going to build, we're going to get better, we're going to extend it out. And then turns out we didn't really need to, because one of 2 things would happen. They'd either throw to the corner and we'd get some pretty consistent deflections and steals, or they'd go, well, they're going to trap us every time we throw to the corner, so we're just going to stop throwing to the corner. And for us, that was great. That means that's 20% of the court you're not going to utilize on offense. And so that allowed us to just go, great, you're not going to throw there. That's cool with us too. We'll just compact our defense and try to let you shoot over us. And so either way, we felt was like we were either going to get tips and deflections, or they're not going to use that space and we're going to get some contested shots.
Yeah, and you know what? It's so hard. Players are trained, they come down against like an odd front zone. A lot of times they split the top and they go across into the corner, or they go right to the corner. It's very hard for them. They really have to game plan for that and say, don't throw the ball to the corners. And like you said, you're taking away such a big chunk of the court. So they have to get really good at, maybe going to the corner and then trying to make a quick pass. But your guys are it sounds like a scrappy group that rotated pretty quickly. And I think it's a pretty
Yeah.
tough zone to go against. Was there things that coaches did to counter this? Was there anything that happened that
Yeah.
was really tough for you guys?
Yeah, I'll show you one that's pretty basic that we saw pretty often, and then I'll show you another one that we saw one time that I thought was incredible. So the basic thing that you're going to see teams do if they want to counteract it is, you'll see the same thing against like a 2-3, is they'll just put one of their bigs in the short corner and they'll put another guy here, right? So what they're trying to do is either extend the corner, and our counter to that was actually pretty simple. The first time we saw it, we were playing a summer tournament up in northern Maine, and so we were playing some teams we hadn't seen before, and they brought one of their big guys over, and so just took off trap, and we instead of us trapping corner, we just had our guy collapse down here. Our guy that would have been trapping would take away here. Everybody else kind of did the same thing that they would normally do, right? And we just played it more conservatively. And again, that worked out for us because they threw it here. They would still have to throw a lob out of here over this guy if he was doing a good job. And we would just play a full denial over here. If there was a lob, this guy was going to try to sneak over and steal it on the lob. So that was our counter to it. But it did take us getting burned a few times by it to make that happen. We're like, when we first did it, our guys were like, well, guys usually don't see a short corner action too much against the 1-2-2, but it is effective. So my advice would be to just back off your traps for a little bit and see if you can just get some disruption 1v1 in the corner and just try to make sure that short corner doesn't touch it. Because what they want to do there is if they do get that short corner touch, just go, same thing again, you'll see it all the time against a 2-3, you go a high-low or a low-high. In this case, hit the short corner, a guy's going to dive from the foul line, they're going to hit him for a layup, right? So we just wanted to make sure that post player wasn't available.
Yeah, it seems like it's equally frustrating for them as a trap because they want to go to the short corner. You got one guy in the corner and then you're taking away that pass. So you're not going to let them get the ball to where they want to get to. So I'm sure you had some turnovers there too, because teams try to force it in there when it's not open or, force other types of passing. But
Right.
I love the concept, and I love, I feel like coaches can run with it. And there's some things they can take away here if they want to go with the trap the way you did it. I think there's a lot of benefits. They can mix and match a little bit with the more aggressive out at half court, and then the more, I'm saying more conservative, but it's really not, because you're still trapping the corner. And I actually really, really like the way you're doing that. As I said, it's unique, but I can see the benefits and I can see why you guys would get so many turnovers. So there's a way to maybe do both, or maybe just take the trap and run with it. So loving what you're doing here. Is this something you're going to use in the future with teams?
Yeah, so I think so. The new school that I'm coaching at now, Bonnie Eagle, I just took over as the first team coach, and we're mostly playing a man-to-man. We do have some size. They've been a base man-to-man team in the past, but we're going to work some zone in, and we'll see if we can work that 1-2-2 in, possibly. Never know. So yeah, we got some options. So it's a new job for me, new slate, and so we'll see if we can work that in there if we can.
Yeah, definitely nice to mix in as a wrinkle. Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking us through the 1-2-2 and the half court trap and why it worked for you guys, and the intricate details of where you position your players and how you rotate. I think is going to be really helpful for coaches. So thanks for breaking that down for us.
Thank you.